This is Rasta now, and I'm Dr. Dave Burton. Rasta now is the staccato monologue and issues of social, political, and religious nature from a Rastaman point of view. I've considered myself a Rastaman from I was 10 years old, and I've never varied. There may have been times where you do things that might not reflect the overall tenets of Rastafari, but we never veer too far. We always circle back to the original levels. Now, I want to do this as a retort to a brethren named Marquette Devon Burton. And it's not more or less a attack, but more like a clarification. All right. So I've listened to a number of this brethren speech, conversation, interaction on YouTube. And I'd say that the content that he presents most of the time is about 95% rational. Some of the time, it's 100% rational. Um, the 5% irrationality comes from either a lack of knowledge or not wanting to do in depth at the time. And so, an individual like me will listen to him and hear that irrationality, right? Um, I'm going to think most likely that he doesn't want to go deep into the particular subject or he doesn't have the knowledge. But vast majority of the time, the brethren is rational, and rationality is Lucifer, right? You might not understand what that means until you understand who Lucifer is, right? So let's get to it. So I heard the brethren was talking about um, a black man who was espousing socialism. And this is coming out of the top of my head, so I might not remember it fully, but verbatim. Right? He said that that is not ours, and we need to have our own political ideology, our own economic political ideology in the United States in order to be successful at galvanizing our community, galvanizing our people, move forward, and be able to help each other. Um, the second part I have no problem with. The first part that we have no political ideology right now is problematic, right? And it might be from, like I said, he didn't take enough time to think about what he was saying, or that he did not have the information or the knowledge at the time to, coalesce around that knowledge and give us a different view, right? So let's start out from the beginning, okay? Now, when African people were enslaved in the West, not just in the United States, but also in the Caribbean and in South America, um, we brought with us, as much as they tried to stamp it out, but we brought with us a particular economic philosophy which led to serious and society changing invention that allow the West to move forward in their industrialization. All right. And, during Black History Month, as they call it, they bring out a long list of inventions. And you can see, from washing machine to the laundry to, the real McCoy and light, light, stop lights, and all those inventions that black people brought forth into this reality is there, right? So these inventions didn't come from out of um, nowhere. They were closely tied to a political and economic philosophy that we employed at the time. We did, right? So, for example, when we were enslaved, there were some of us who were able to, in a particular part of the United States, do things to buy themselves out of slavery. They were able to buy themselves out of slavery, a number of people. And so you had free men. Not everybody escaped from the South and came to the North, but there were individuals who were hard workers, strong thinkers, inventors, who were able to create stuff, create things that allowed them to buy themselves out of enslavement. All right. When they decided that enslavement was no longer an economic profitability, enslavement was no longer profitable because it was so rooted in feudalism. And feudalism suppresses economic growth. That's one thing, right? You go to Europe and you see that feudalism suppresses economic growth. And there was a movement away from feudalism in Europe. And if you read Carl Polanyi, um, Transformation, right, the Great Transformation, where he talks about um, the economy moving from truck and barter all the way up into modern commerce, right? It tells you clearly that feudalism was suppressing economic growth. It is an anathema to capitalism, not socialism, but feudalism. It doesn't encourage growth, especially growth in capital, because it's only one person who won the capital, one set of people who won all the capital, and they're not in a no rush to make more because they won everything, and therefore there is this great stagnation. And if you look at it, you see that um, at the end of feudalism, which would be around say 1750, 1760, the Bolshevik Revolution, the revolution in France, revolution and changes in Germany, changes in England, you find then that the Industrial Revolution was able to just explode. Within no time, there was all kind of stuff. Some people didn't even realize that we came out of feudalism 10 years ago and we have trains and lights, street lights, and everything was just moving up because money was moving now. Money was being expanded. The economy was expanding at a rapid pace. We as African people saw that. We saw what was happening at the end of feudalism. And we know basically that slave society could not exist in a capitalist society. It just don't work. So it had to go. It is not a moral imperative that slavery is bad and all of this, but we know basically that the growing economy and the exploding economy need workers to create more capital and for these workers to become consumer, to consume the goods. And they can only consume the goods if they have money. And they have to be paid to get money. Therefore, feudalism could not work. Society could not expand. Capital growth would have been stifled. We know that. We observe that, right? And so we contributed, as African people, we contributed to the growth of capital, right? For example, we brought with us from West Africa the method to create iron, right? When them call it scrap iron. In Jamaica, we used to call it scrap iron, right? And it wasn't until a couple of years ago I learned that the method to make these iron that was used in the early part of the Industrial Revolution in England came from Jamaica, came from Africans who was in Jamaica. And we refine that process and allow England to embark on a industrial revolution that Europe had never seen before. And they used that industrial revolution and became masters of the sea. Because them could build big old iron ship, nobody could touch them. All right? But we did that. Jamaicans created, Africans in Jamaica refined the process. White man stole it, took it for himself. So we understand the nature of capitalism. We know what capitalism is. We understand it. And we understand how we can contribute to it. It's not foreign to us. And that is why when in 1865, 66, 67, when the United States says we are no longer sanctioning enslavement of African people, and we're going to give them a 13th Amendment to verify that and to lock that into law, that enslavement is no longer a law in the United States. And on the side, they claim that they're going to give African people 40 acres and a mule. We didn't get that 40 acres and a mule. And we didn't cry about it. I didn't even hear people crying about it until maybe Spike Lee came up with his production company, right? 40 acres and a mule. It wasn't a thing. Why? Because we set out to become an integral part of the capitalist system. And we were an integral part of the capitalist system. Right? In the late 1900, 1860, coming on the way up, we created numerous small towns and villages in the United States where black people were the bankers, the lawyers, the doctors, the teachers, the preachers, the professional class, and the working class. We did that. And we had a separate economy because segregation forced us to have a separate economy. And we didn't cry, but that was our economic philosophy, is that we do things to benefit us. And we know who we needed at the forefront, who would be doing things to benefit all of us. And so out of that economic philosophy came Web Du Bois and the talented tent, because the talented tent, the whole philosophy behind the talented tent, is not a prophecy. It's a reflection. Webb was looking back at what was happening and what had happened before, and he recognized, all right, that the society, black people society, was being pushed by the professional class, by people who went to school and did all of them have to do. That was who was moving it. All right, whether it's blue collar professional or white collar professional. He recognized that that's what caused black people to succeed in the United States up to a particular point, right? And were able to create autonomous society, towns, villages, right? Hundreds. And that happened all the way up until the 1920s. And we hear of Black Wall Street and Greenville in Florida and how they fly over, drop bomb and burn it out and kill out the two of them, right? But it wasn't two. It was hundreds of towns and villages that were destroyed by white mobs. Why? Black people were successful. There was a fear. There was a fear. And, well-founded fear that left alone, sooner or later, we would be the billionaires and the millionaires in the United States. So that had to be clipped in the bud. And they did. But they don't give us the full understanding that it wasn't just two little towns that they destroyed, but hundreds. Hundreds. And out of that came Marcus Garvey, which was another philosophy, which was let's go back to Africa. Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. So we go back to Africa. And Marcus Garvey philosophy, wrong, loud. And that is why Marcus was able to march 1 million people up Fifth Avenue in the 1920s, maybe 22 or 23, but he marched 1 million people up Fifth Avenue in the 1920s. And that too scared the white man. Because if black people en masse left the United States, GDP sink, earnings sink, the economy sink. So they could not afford that either. So they opposed that. So initially they opposed the talented tent moving our community, right? Having people emulating the talented tent. Sooner or later it would have become the talented 20th, which would be the talented fifth, 1/5 instead of 1/10, talented 30%. And it wasn't far-fetched. Okay? If you look back on statistics of the amount of black people that was in college and was graduating, it was far ahead of on a, what you call it, proportion basis, far ahead of white people and everybody else. So we employ that particular economic philosophy and they crushed it by burning down the town and doing all of that, right? And dispersing people and say, you're not having this. This is not going to happen for you. And when Marcus come and say, okay, so let's leave, right? And they say, okay, take that little piece of Africa over there that is called Liberia. It's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. But only a few people ended up in Liberia. It was not that viable. Plus, there were other Africans there. What you did was colonize the places and change the name. But there were other Africans there, and we went to Liberia with nothing. We can always go back and look at the missions to Liberia and the repatriation to Liberia to see that it was far short of what was needed. So Marcus come and say, back to Africa, pride, self-esteem, pull yourself up, and all that, right? And let's go to Africa. And Webb, the boss, came back over and said, that little Negro man from Jamaica don't know what he's talking about. Maybe get up and leave. I was born here. This is my land. I'm not leaving, going anywhere. Right? Is he stupid? Leave America where my forefathers' blood is here and we build this place and I'm not leaving nothing. Right? So there was inevitably a clash. And what happened out of the clash? Marcus get pushed away. Right? First Cointel Pro. I don't even think it named Cointel Pro at that time. But there was a concerted effort to get rid of this little Negro man from Jamaica who was coming here to agitate people and moving millions of people in his direction. So we had to put a stop to that. That was the thought and the mindset that Marcus faced. And the plan was set in motion. All right. We do later on, 100, maybe, oh, no, maybe 70, 80 years after he died, we're hearing that you're giving him posthumous pardon and all them things because you know that back then he didn't have anything against him. Whosoever did whatever extortion or fraud were planted in the Marcos movement, and people came and showed sincerity when they were stabbing him in the back. We know that, so you give him like a pardon, and we say all of that, and we. But the bottom line was we kill that at the beginning. We stamp it out, right? Marcos moved us into Pan Africanism naturally, all right? And George Padmore came up and tell us about the Pan African, and he keep a Pan African conference, and people start move and say, yes, no matter where you are, you're an African. You know, Peter Touch. No matter where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you're an African. That came out of the Pan African movement, right? And Peter tell we are, and we embrace that. We see each other as Africans. Nothing else. We see each other as African. That came out of the Pan African movement. And that bring us up, right, to the civil rights movement. But the Pan African movement did have a particular economic consequence that was good for black people. And you can read a number of books on this to see what black people was doing in the 20s coming all the way up into the 50s. There was a particular time where if you measured the economy that was circulating in the black community, it was like number 4 or number 5 worldwide. Worldwide. Most of the people who came from the South back in those days and came north, that wave that left the South and came north, came on buses that was owned by black people. We had television station, we had radio station, we had a whole community for ourselves. And that came out of this Pan-African philosophy, where we look towards each other for what we want for each other. And we didn't even think about integration. We don't care if you have a store over there, you don't want me to come into your store to spend my money. That's all right. We have a store over here where we can spend our money, right? And if it is that we're spending our money with us and having our money circulate within us 6, 7, 8 times before it leaves the community, that is good for us. But it's not good for you because the white man economy was stagnating. Because while they were projecting segregation, while they were keeping black people out of this stuff, black people was opening up the door and say, anybody can come spend. As long as you have money. We don't care the color of your skin, come and buy. Right? So we grow while they contracted. They contracted. Right? And we were growing. And we had stuff. We had stores, we have TV stations, like I said before. We had a whole lot of stuff. Bus company, taxi fleets. And there are a number of books written on the economic power of the black people in the United States during the 50s, 60s, and 70s and the 80s. Right? But again, that was a consequence of a particular political, economic philosophy. It wasn't just haphazard or just came from out there anywhere. It was particular. We were doing for us and doing with us for the benefit of us. All right? And it had to die. That had to move too, because that was too much of a consequence for white people to feel comfortable with. And it was too lucrative. It was too big of a prize. If we, this is, that might be their way of thinking. If we can absorb an economy that is the fourth largest in the world, that is a big prize. That is our profit right there. And so that socioeconomic Pan-Africanism was attacked by integration. That's what it was attacked by. Right? And they know what they're going to use to attack it and who they're going to use to attack it. They know that black people are matriarchal. Everybody listen to them granny, not grandpa, but grandmother. Grandmother at the head of the family. And we know that because that came from straight out of Africa. We never let that go. And our grandmother full of emotions and loyalty and seeking redemption. And so them push up Martin Luther King right in front of us. And he's now telling us that although we have our own stuff and our own shop, our own bus, our own taxi that we can use, that we can go and buy, it's not good enough because it's not white people stuff. So we must now be going to white people things and give them our money, give them bigger profit is much better for them. For us to give them our profit to the detriment of our other people, to the detriment of our particular economy. And that was whipped up. That's the best thing to do. We were integrated into white society, meaning that the white society absorbed 75, at least 75% of our economy. And we must now go sit down at Woolworth counter and have people spit at us, throw coffee at us, do all kind of stuff to us just because we want to spend our money with Woolworth. And we want to show them that we should be integrated into them. They should serve us too. And what happened? Our economy got absorbed to the max. Baseball, them absorb that. Them bring in one man and say, come, token, Play in our league, we gonna give you a whole lot of money and all of that, boom, boom, boom. And then that's what happened. Sooner or later, our leagues, what you call the Negro League, died. More exciting than white baseball, MLB. More talented players was there, but they pick and choose, and they got rid of the Negro League, and they created the Major League Baseball. And the talented baseball players who didn't get a chance to play in Major League Baseball had to go to the corner and just die out. And some mediocre white dude were able to play and make money, and our league died. Why? Because we were being integrated. And that was just one. The baseball get integrated, basketball get integrated, your life get integrated. You were told that you are now, more than anything else, an American. And they drive this now with the civil rights movement. So civil rights movement and integration run hand in hand. You can't separate them. Civil rights mean that you should be integrated into the society. You should be a part of the society. Remember now, we had historic black colleges and universities. Them still exist. But if you look at their trajectory, it got clipped in the 50s, 60s, and then they almost died out. Why? Because the more talented black students wanted to go to now Harvard and Yale and UC Berkeley and the Ivy League school and Penn State and all of these big name white schools. And they neglected their own. So the talented tent was now fully integrated in white society. And those who were thinking about back to Africa and Pan-Africanism were now fully integrated into the white society. There was no time for anything else. It was all about integration and collecting that profit. Because the black community represented 15-20% profit margin. And they integrate that. They kill our economic, political philosophy. See me, Regine? Right? So we recognize that, right? And the 60s, 70s came about, right? Brown versus Board of Education and all them, where I say demeaning decisions came about. And out of the 60s and the 70s came the African movement. The Back to Africa was still there, it didn't die out totally, right? And man start, move more on a creative basis to Africa, right? So you had the dashiki and the afro, and people was feeling proud about being African. And you have the music, you have a whole lot of African music, and people integrating African music in a jazz, and you know, Mano de Bango became a big hit in Jamaica, here and in Jamaica too, right? And quite a few Africans became popular, and we watched them carefully to see that the love that black people had for Africans became stronger during that time. We were integrated on a level, but we're still trying to hold on to our Africanness. And that was attacked. Big time too. From both white people and black people attacked it. Both white and black attacked people moving towards the African. And in response to that attack, we created what them call Afrocentrism, right? Molefe, Kente Asante, and the rest of them came up with the Afrocentrism, and that was attacked too. We were told Afrocentrism is a scam, it don't work, it's nothing, it's waste. And it was attacked viciously. Viciously. Without a joke, it was attacked, right? Why? Because it proved successful among African people. Remember now, all the Afrocentrism, what did we get? Basically, we get a movement towards economy that we're missing for a while, right? Other that we get FUBU, PNBR, we get Karkanai, we get Jay-Z and his Fat Farm, we get Fat Farm, we get Rockaware, we get Puff Daddy and Sean John and Fat Joe and Inichi and quite a few more. And people was moving towards doing things for things and things and things for things. We were moving towards having our own things. Why should our things be integrated into somebody else's so that we don't have no identity? We don't have no economic identity. And that's what we're missing today, right? A particular economic identity. So we don't have that, right? But they saw that that was what was happening, right? Sean John was wildly successful, Fat Farm, and black people. That's how we were. We didn't care about no Calvin Klein, and no Joshua Armani, and no Yves Saint Laurent. We didn't care about them and the Gucci. Gucci didn't excite us. Did not. We didn't business about no Gucci. We were into Fat Farm and Baby Fat and Sean John and Fubu and PNBR. That's where we were spending our money. And that is what informed our political economic philosophy. Again, we have moved towards ours to help ours grow. And our thing grow and provide employment for we. And we spend our money with we so that we benefit, right? By providing employment, by providing a way of life, providing a way for a family to support themselves, by providing a look to the future where an individual can say, hey, I want to be a designer. And maybe I can go to 6, 7 different black fashion houses and maybe I have a better chance that they'll pick me up. But that too, Marquette, was attacked, right? They start with Kalkanai, who began him little business by selling out of the trunk of him car in Brooklyn. That's an original streetwear king. And he started selling his stuff out of Brooklyn from Flatbush Avenue and National Avenue and Martins Avenue and all the place over Brooklyn and drive around and stop and pick it up. And they buy it. They bought it. In the heights when Kalkanai was just ready to explode, somebody came and offered him some money and he took it. Believing now that his baby was going to grow up. And guess what? The baby was aborted. Kalkanai died. And every other brand that we had in the 90s were slaughtered with money. Jay-Z have say I'm a billionaire now. So where is Rockaway? It wasn't possible for him to keep that going and provide not just employment, but economic enlightenment to black people in America. To say, yes, a black man is the head of a big fashion house, manufacturing all kind of clothes and accessories for black people and growing, spreading. Imagine if these guys had maintained their companies and drop it in a South Africa and drop it in a Ghana and drop it in a, all of the African countries and start opening stores in the African countries. What would that mean? What would that look to us? And what would that mean for them? $2 billion wouldn't be anything. That would be chump change. That would be that would be what he's contributing to the black colleges, HBCUs. But they came in and picked them off one by one. Every last one of them was purchased, and every last one of them were killed. And they were purchased at the height of their popularity and slaughtered with money. I'm slaughtered everybody. And you get excited. What? You offered me $100 million for this? Boom, give me it. And you get your 100 million, you're gone. And the vision is that's 100 million you get today, which could be 100 billion 10 years from now. But you take your 100 billion because it's now, and you're living in the now. You're living in the moment, right? And you get it, and you're nice, and you don't look down, right? And guess what happened after that? Now we see all of these fashion houses, these European fashion houses, start crafting products that we used to wear from Sean John and all of them, and Carcanine and all of them. Streetwear. They're making all the money now off of streetwear because we all of a sudden we now start buy. All of a sudden Gucci now big. We load up Gucci. Woo, Gucci. You know, Versace. Yeah. All these Italian and French houses, Yves Saint Laurent, Giorgio Armani, Calvin Klein. And so Afrocentrism was dusted off and put back in the suitcase. They got rid of it. We get rid of this Afrocentrism thing because it was too detrimental to the white economy. And it had lead black people to try to establish their own economic philosophy. And we're not supposed to have it. You see me, brethren? So, what are we doing now? What are we doing now? Are we without an economic philosophy? Are we without any kind of economic power? What we doing? And I would say, look carefully and you're going to see blessings.